Running a hotel wasn't just a job for me, it was my whole life. My name's Sarah, and this hotel was my world. That was until he walked in. You couldn't miss him. A young man in a suit that practically shouted wealth. His eyes were glued to an expensive phone as he checked in, flashing a smile that could sweep you off your feet. "Good evening, I'm Jacob," he said, his voice smooth and confident. "I'll be staying for a couple of nights. Anything exciting going on around here?" I found myself smiling back, caught a little off guard by his charm. "Well, Jacob, this city's full of surprises. Depends on what you're looking for," I replied, handing him his key. Our conversation was short, but it left an impression. Maybe it was the curiosity in his eyes, or the way he seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. He didn't stay long, but when he checked out, he left a note. "Enjoyed our talk. Care to continue it over dinner?" it said. I hesitated. I wasn't used to mixing work and my personal life, but there was something about him that intrigued me. I decided to take a chance. We met at a cozy restaurant, the kind of place where the buzz of chatter and clinking glasses made you feel like the rest of the world didn't exist. "You've really got that hotel running like clockwork, don't you, Sarah?" Jacob said with a smile as we settled into our seats. I laughed, feeling unexpectedly at ease. "I guess you could say I've had plenty of practice." The evening flew by as we talked about everything and nothing. Jacob seemed like an open book, sharing stories about his travels and business ventures. When the conversation shifted to me, I found myself opening up in a way I rarely did. I told him about losing my parents and how it had been just me and my sister Camille against the world since I was 24. "That's a lot to handle, Sarah," he said, his expression softening. His eyes held a mix of admiration and something else I couldn't quite figure out. I shrugged it off, saying, "We all deal with the cards we're given, right? Camille has always been my top priority. Our parents left us a little money, and I've worked hard to grow it bit by bit." Jacob nodded, looking impressed. "That's really something," he said thoughtfully. As the evening went on, he added, "You've got a good head on your shoulders." I realized I hadn't laughed this much in ages. But when I tried to ask him about his family, he smoothly changed the subject. "My parents and I don't see eye to eye," he said, a shadow passing over his face. "Let's just say they have their way of seeing the world, and I have mine." I didn't push for more. Everyone has their own struggles and stories, and I didn't want to make him uncomfortable. As the night came to an end, I found myself wishing it wouldn't. There was something about Jacob that made me feel alive, like I hadn't in years. Life with Jacob became a whirlwind. Every day was full of surprises, and every moment felt special. He had this way of turning even the simplest things into unforgettable memories. Whether it was a casual dinner or a quiet walk, he made everything feel magical. One evening, as we sat in our favorite little cafe with its dim lights and cozy corners, I said, "Jacob, I can't believe how fast everything is happening." He reached across the table, taking my hand in his. "Sarah, when something feels right, why wait? I've never been more certain of anything in my life," he said, his voice steady and his eyes locked on mine. "I know," I replied, "but it's all happening so quickly. It's a lot to take in." The day of the wedding, he gently squeezed my hand. "I get it, Sarah, but trust me. I'm here for the long haul. I want to build a life with you, a future. And I want to start by making this wedding day the most incredible day of our lives." The way he talked about the wedding, with so much excitement and certainty, was hard to resist. He painted a picture of a celebration so grand, it took my breath away. "Imagine it, Sarah," he said, his voice brimming with enthusiasm. "A ceremony no one will forget. A day that celebrates our love. It's going to be perfect." And then he smiled, leaning closer. "Just wait until the honeymoon." I asked him, feeling both curious and a little nervous, "You mentioned something about the most expensive hotel in the world." His smile grew wider. "Yes, it's all part of the plan. But I need you to trust me. Let's take this leap together. Your savings for the wedding, my funds for the honeymoon, and our future home. We'll make this a reality." I hesitated. The practical side of me wanted to be careful, but when I looked into his eyes, filled with love and promise, I felt my doubts fade. I nodded slowly. Okay, Jacob. Let's do it. Let's make this wedding a day to remember. The weeks flew by, as wedding planning completely took over our lives. Jacob was unstoppable, taking charge of every detail to make sure our day would be nothing short of extraordinary. Watching him so focused and determined made me fall even deeper in love. Jacob, you're amazing. The way you're handling everything, I don't even know how to thank you. I told him one evening as we went through the guest list and talked about the extravagant menu he had planned. He pulled me close, wrapping his arms around me. Sarah, seeing you happy is all the thanks I need. This wedding is just the start. Our life together will be even more beautiful. But even with all the excitement, doubt would creep in at times, whispering questions late at night. Was I moving too fast? Was I letting the romance sweep me away? Every time those thoughts came up, Jacob was there to reassure me. His words and promises were like an anchor, keeping me steady in the storm of uncertainty. The wedding preparations filled my days, choosing cakes, flowers, and decorations. But in the middle of all the chaos, I realized I needed Camille. She wasn't just my sister. She was my rock, my confidant. Ever since we lost our parents, it had been just the two of us against the world. Her opinion meant everything to me, especially now. I picked up the phone and called her, hoping she could take a break from her job at the cafe. Hey, Camille. Think you can leave the aprons and coffee smells behind for a day? I could really use some help with tulle and satin, I joked, my voice full of hope. Camille's laughter came through the phone, light and familiar. For you, sis? I'll trade coffee stains for bridal trains any day. Give me an hour to finish up here, and I'm all yours. The bridal shop felt like a dream, filled with white and ivory gowns that seemed to flow like waterfalls of lace and silk. As I tried on dress after dress, Camille's presence kept me calm in the whirlwind of satin and sequins. That one, Sarah, it's like it was made for you, Camille said, her eyes lighting up as I stepped out of the dressing room wearing a gown that felt perfect. I turned to look at my reflection, the dress fitting every curve just right and flowing softly to the floor. You think so? I don't know, I feel like a real bride, I said, a smile spreading across my face. Camille's grin matched mine, but for a brief moment, I caught something in her expression, a shadow, quick and troubling. Before I could ask, she grabbed a dress off the rack. Mind if I try this one on? Just for fun, she asked, holding up a gown that shimmered with every move. I laughed, surprised and amused. Planning to elope, are you? Or is there some mystery man you've been hiding from me? Camille laughed too, but it wasn't her usual carefree laugh. There was something else there, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Oh, Sarah, you know me, always a bridesmaid, never a bride. But a girl can dream, right? She joked, though her eyes quickly darted away as if to hide something. The rest of the day was filled with laughter and the soft rustle of silk, but I couldn't ignore the shift in Camille's mood. Her bubbly self seemed to fade at times, replaced by moments of distraction. Everything okay, Camille? You seem a little off today, I asked gently, feeling a twinge of worry. She waved her hand dismissively, brushing off my concerns. It's nothing, really, just the chaos at the cafe. You know how it gets, she said with a quick smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. As we left the bridal shop, the weight of whatever she was hiding hung between us, creating an uneasy tension I couldn't ignore. I wanted to believe it was just pre-wedding stress or maybe a tough day at work, but deep down, I had a feeling it was something more. Something bigger. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The excitement of finding the perfect wedding dress had been replaced by worry about Camille's strange behavior. She'd always been like an open book to me, but now it felt like some pages were missing, with secrets hidden between the lines. As the wedding day got closer, the happiness I should have felt was clouded by a growing unease. Camille and I had always faced life together, but now it felt like there was a wall between us, built with unanswered questions and things unsaid. I had no idea that the answers to those questions were about to turn my whole world upside down. It started like any other day, or so I thought. Jacob had left his phone buzzing on the kitchen counter as I cleaned up. The constant notifications caught my attention, a nagging reminder that something wasn't quite right. Surprisingly, the phone wasn't even locked. That alone made my stomach twist, but what I found when I looked was worse than anything I could have imagined. The messages between Jacob and Camille hit me like a punch to the gut. Each word felt like a knife, cutting deeper and deeper. They weren't just having an affair, they were planning to push me aside, like I meant nothing. Years of love and trust with Camille crumbled in an instant. I read her message over and over, the one where she confessed to Jacob that she was pregnant with his child. My vision blurred as tears filled my eyes. Can't believe we pulled this off. She's such a fool, falling for every lie. And now with the baby, we can finally be together, just as we planned, she had written. The world around me seemed to spin, like I was trapped in a storm of lies and betrayal. Jacob's reply was just as cruel, if not worse. Love you, babe. Can't wait to see her humiliated and out of the picture. She's just a naive cash cow. This wedding will be perfect, thanks to her money. After that, we'll finally have our real life together. I sat there, the phone heavy in my trembling hands. A storm of emotions swirled inside me. Betrayal, anger, disbelief. But beneath it all, something else began to grow. A cold, unshakable determination. They thought they could use me, lie to me, and throw me away like I didn't matter. But they were wrong. I wasn't about to let them destroy me. They were going to learn what happens when you underestimate Sarah Anderson. When Jacob came back into the room, his carefree attitude felt like a slap in the face. Hey, babe, did I miss any important calls? He asked casually, picking up his phone with a relaxed smile. I forced a smile, even though my stomach churned with anger. Nope, just the usual stuff. Busy day, I replied, keeping my voice calm and steady despite the storm inside me. Jacob gave me that same charming smile, the one I now knew was just a mask. As always, but nothing's more important than coming back to you, he said, leaning in for a kiss. I had to fight every instinct not to pull away. From that moment on, I played my role as the clueless fiancé perfectly. I smiled, nodded, and went along with all the wedding plans. But behind the scenes, I was carefully plotting my revenge against the 5 people who had betrayed me so deeply. Every day felt like a test of my patience, a balancing act between acting the part and holding back the rage inside me. But I wouldn't let them see me break. I was waiting for the perfect moment, and when it came, they would feel the full weight of what they had done to me. At night, as I lay in bed, the images of Jacob and Camille's deceitful faces haunted me. Their betrayal was burned into my mind. I made a silent promise to myself they would pay for this. Their twisted little game would end, and it would be their downfall. I was no longer just the heartbroken fiancé. I was the one plotting their undoing. My revenge would be precise, careful, and oh, so satisfying. The days leading up to the wedding felt surreal. On the surface, everything was perfect, the flowers, the guest list, the dress. But underneath, a storm of anger and betrayal was brewing. Jacob stayed the same, all smiles and affection, completely unaware of the disaster waiting for him. Sarah, everything's coming together so beautifully. This wedding is going to be the talk of the town, he said one evening as we went over the final details. I nodded, my smile polished and fake. Yes, it's going to be a day to remember, I replied, knowing full well the meaning behind my words was something he could never imagine. Facing Camille was harder. She was the sister I had once loved and protected, but now she felt like a stranger to me. Everything she said, everything she did, was a painful reminder of her betrayal. Still, I kept my mask on, pretending to be the same loving sister who didn't know about the knife she'd driven into my back. Sarah, you're handling everything so well. I don't know how you do it, Camille said one day as we worked on the seating arrangements. I smiled at her, the perfect picture of calm. It's all about making sure the day is unforgettable, I said, my words hiding a truth she would never see coming. I looked at her, the sister I thought I knew, and forced a laugh. Oh, Camille, you know me. I've always been good at organizing chaos, I said, the irony of my words not lost on me. As the wedding day got closer, the tension grew heavier, like walking a tightrope while trying not to fall. Jacob kept his phone close now, his conversations quiet and rushed, but it didn't matter. I already knew everything I needed to know. The morning of the wedding was clear and sunny, the kind of day everyone dreams of. But for me, it was the perfect setting for what I knew would be a beautiful disaster. As I got ready, the reflection in the mirror showed a calm, serene bride. But beneath the veil and makeup, I was a woman on a mission, no longer a pawn in their twisted game. "Camille's running late, Hals?" Jacob said casually as he adjusted his tie. I met his eyes in the mirror, careful not to let anything slip. "Yes, but she'll be here. She wouldn't miss this for the world," I replied, my words laced with double meaning. He nodded, completely clueless. "Well, she's always been a bit unpredictable. But today is about us, Sarah. Our new beginning." I turned to face him, my smile calm and steady, hiding the storm inside me. "Yes, Jacob. A new beginning," I said, bracing myself for what was about to unfold. As I walked down the aisle, the eyes of our friends and family were on me, their smiles warm and full of joy. They had no idea what was coming. This was the calm before the storm, and I knew the moment of truth was just around the corner. Everything was in place, the vows, the guests, the perfect setting. But this wasn't going to end the way anyone expected. Standing next to Jacob in front of the priest, my heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination. The vows, meant to promise forever, were about to shatter in the most dramatic way possible. The guests, oblivious to the chaos beneath the surface, watched us with smiles and tears in their eyes. But then, something happened that no one could have predicted. Camille appeared. She stormed down the aisle, dressed in a bridal gown almost identical to mine. Her eyes met mine, but there was no love, no sisterly connection. Instead, there was a cold, sharp determination that sent a chill through me. "Move aside, Sarah," she said, her voice cutting through the room. "I'm the one who deserves to be here. Jacob loves me, and I'm carrying his child." "I'm carrying his child," Camille declared, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. The room erupted into whispers and gasps as the guests exchanged confused and disbelieving glances. Jacob, instead of showing shock or regret, let out a hearty laugh, dropping the mask he had so carefully worn. "Well said, Camille. Sarah, you've been a good host, but this is where your part ends. Why don't you join the audience?" "This is Camille's moment now," he said, his words dripping with mockery and arrogance. Their betrayal, so public and cruel, sent a shockwave through the room. The audacity of it left the guests frozen in disbelief. But as the weight of the situation hit me, I did something no one expected. Not Jacob, not Camille, not even myself. I smiled. I looked at Jacob, then at Camille, and said, "Of course, why not? I wouldn't want to miss the show. After all, I did pay for it." My voice was calm, steady, masking the storm raging inside me. Camille and Jacob exchanged uneasy glances, clearly thrown off by my response. This wasn't the reaction they had expected. The guests were just as confused, their eyes darting between us as they tried to make sense of the surreal scene unfolding before them. I walked gracefully to an empty seat among the guests and sat down, my head held high. The whispers around me grew louder. What's she up to? Is she really going to let this happen? The questions buzzed through the crowd like bees, but I stayed serene, a statue in the middle of the chaos. Jacob and Camille, now standing together at the altar, looked unsettled. My calm demeanor had cracked the confidence in their plan to humiliate me. This wasn't playing out the way they'd hoped. "What's your game, Sarah? Why are you so calm?" Jacob asked, his voice a mix of confusion and unease. I met his gaze, my smile unwavering. "No game, Jacob. Just enjoying the fruits of my labor. Please go ahead." "I'm eager to see how this all turns out," I replied, my words sharp and deliberate, like a knife wrapped in velvet. The ceremony continued, but the atmosphere was different now. The tension in the room was palpable, the guests caught between shock and anticipation. They couldn't tell if they were witnessing a wedding or the opening act of a dramatic disaster. As Camille and Jacob exchanged vows, their words felt hollow, a mockery of the sacred promises they were meant to represent. I sat there, surrounded by friends and family who struggled to comprehend what they were seeing. Inside me, the fire of betrayal burned, but my composure never wavered. They thought they'd won. Little did they know, this was only the beginning of my plan. I knew this was just the start. The real drama was yet to unfold, and Camille and Jacob, in their arrogance, had unknowingly set themselves up for their own downfall. As the priest asked if anyone objected, the doors burst open with a loud bang. A woman, older and worn, stormed in, her eyes blazing with fury. "Stop this wedding right now," she demanded, her voice slicing through the silence like a knife. Jacob's face turned ghostly pale, his eyes wide with panic. "Sabrina? What are you doing here?" he stammered, his polished facade crumbling in an instant. Sabrina, Jacob's legal wife, as I had uncovered, marched straight to the altar. "I'm here to stop you from making an even bigger fool of yourself and these people," she said, her voice firm. Then she turned to me with a sympathetic look. "Sarah, you deserve to know the truth." The guests broke into murmurs, the scene unfolding in front of them more gripping than anything they'd ever seen. Camille clutched her stomach, her face frozen in shock and fear. Sabrina didn't hold back. "Jacob is a liar and a cheat. His investments failed, and he's drowning in debt. He's been using all of you to try and save himself," she said, her voice steady and loud. "And Camille, you poor girl, you're just another pawn in his twisted game." The room erupted into chaos. Guests stood up, their whispers growing louder with each passing second. Jacob tried to speak, but the uproar drowned out his voice. I rose to my feet, my heart pounding, but my voice stayed calm and strong. "There's more," I announced, my words cutting through the noise. The room fell silent again, every eye on me. I hired a private investigator after I found out about Jacob and Camille's affair. Not only is Jacob married and drowning in debt, but he's also been hiding a child, a daughter he's never supported. Camille's face crumpled, her expression shifting from shock to devastation. "Jacob, is this true? Tell me she's lying," she pleaded, her voice breaking. Jacob stood there, pale and defeated, with no words left to defend himself. His web of lies and betrayal had unraveled completely, leaving him exposed for all to see. But the final blow was still to come. As the guests tried to process the revelations, 3 stern figures entered the room: Jacob's parents. I had contacted them and told them everything, and now they were here to confront their son. Jacob's father, a man of few words but great authority, stepped forward. His voice, filled with disappointment and anger, cut through the tension like a blade. "Jacob, you are no son of mine. Your actions today and in the past have shown your true character. You are cut off from this family and our fortune." The room fell into an uneasy silence as Jacob's face turned from pale to ashen, the weight of his ruined schemes sinking in. The game was over, and he had lost everything. I looked at Jacob, Camille, and the broken dreams they had tried to build on lies. The pain of their betrayal still hurt, but as I stood there on what was supposed to be my happiest day, I realized this wasn't the end of my story. It was the start of something new. In the days that followed, I found myself in court, seeking justice for everything Jacob had done. The courtroom felt like a different world, where my pain and humiliation were turned into legal arguments and stacks of paperwork. "Jacob, you didn't just break a promise. You shattered trust and took advantage of my kindness," I said firmly, my voice steady and clear. "You owe me more than an apology. You owe me compensation for turning my life upside down." The judge's gavel came down, the sharp sound cutting through the tense silence. "The court finds in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant is hereby ordered to pay $93,000 in damages for the emotional distress and financial loss caused," the judge declared. His words were like a balm to my wounded spirit. As I left the courtroom, the heavy weight of the past months started to lift. Justice had been served, But I knew the journey to healing had only just begun. Jacob's troubles didn't stop with me. Sabrina, his legal wife, was filled with anger and hurt. She filed her own case against him, demanding compensation for his betrayal and neglect of their child. The once confident, smooth-talking man was now tangled in a web of his own lies, with no way out. As for Camille, my sister, the person I had loved and trusted the most, she was left alone and abandoned. Jacob had fled the city, leaving her to deal with the mess they had created. She was pregnant and terrified, a far cry from the carefree, happy girl she used to be. One day, she came to me, her eyes filled with tears. "Sarah, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm lost, and I don't know what to do," she pleaded. I looked at her, the sister I had once done anything for. My heart ached, but the pain of her betrayal was too fresh, too deep. "Camille, you are my family, my blood. But what you did isn't something I can just forgive or forget. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them, just like I'm living with mine," I said quietly. The distance between us wasn't just physical. It was a deep canyon of betrayal and hurt, too wide and too deep to ever bridge again. Life went on, but the scars from those painful months stayed with me. They were a reminder of what I had been through, of how I had survived, and of the strength I never knew I had. I focused on rebuilding my life, finding comfort in the simple things. I had loved, lost, trusted, and been betrayed. But through it all, I survived. Looking back at everything, I realized the most important journey wasn't about others. It was the one I was taking within myself. It was a journey of healing, finding my strength again, and learning how to trust and love once more.